Okay, good morning again, everybody. For those that have just joined online, my name is Simon Hill. I'm President of the Royal Photographic Society and Chair of the Board of Trustees. I'd like to welcome you to the Royal Photographic Society's annual general meeting for 2022. I know we've got members joining from all over the world. We've got Republic of Ireland, mainland Europe, United States, Asia, Southeast Asia. So to all of you, sort of good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for everyone for taking the time to attend this AGM. I've received apologies from Professor Ralph Jacobson, Moira Ellis, Stuart Wall, Alistair Taylor and Derek Britton. There is some just housekeeping to do. I've already explained about the exit procedure and evacuation procedure for those that are in the hall. For those online, to turn off the text version of the spoken words, you should request 2 instructions via the Q&A. If this is unfamiliar to you, please ask. The chat function has been disabled for this event. Any questions at the appropriate time should be asked through the Q&A feature, which can be found at the bottom of the Zoom screen or at the top if you're on a tablet or a phone. To ensure an appropriate experience for everyone online, you've been put on mute and your video has been disabled. Finally, for those, I've done that already. For those of you that are in person, you know where the toilets are and you know what to do when the alarm goes off. This is the first time we've come together as a society since the announcement of the death of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to her on behalf of members, staff and the Council of the Royal Photographic Society. From our founding in 1853, we've enjoyed a long and unbroken line of royal patrons, which has included 3 queens: Queen Victoria, our first patron, Queen Alexandra, and Queen Elizabeth II. In 1952, following the death of her father, King George VI, the young Queen Elizabeth II became patron of the Society and remained our patron for an amazing 67 years, during which time she was pleased to grant a Charter of Incorporation to the Society on the 27th of July 2004, making us a charter organisation. In 2019, Her late Majesty passed the patronage to Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge, who, as many will know, is an accomplished photographer and an enthusiastic supporter of this society. I know my predecessor in the office of President, Robert Albright, had the pleasure of meeting the Duchess in 2020, and I enjoyed that same pleasure last year. Now, as Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, and with the inevitable expansion of her duties, we sincerely hope that the Princess of Wales will remain our patron for many years to come. As a fitting and final mark of respect to our late Queen, our patron for 67 years, would you please stand for 1 minute's silence? Thank you very much. So, the highlights of the RPS calendar. To the order of business for our annual general meeting. So as much as it was last year, and probably every year before that, the agenda is shown on the screen. I anticipate that the meeting will last no longer than an hour, but as already evidenced this morning, I'm not the best timekeeper. It may be a little bit longer, but a lot of that sort of depends on how fast we get through this. The minutes of the AGM 2021, I hope you've all read them. We've not received any questions or queries on these minutes, so unless there are any to be posed now, I'd like to formally accept the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting we had last year. Could I have a proposer to accept the minutes last year? Thank you. If you could give your name to Janet. And the seconder, please. Okay. Okay, could we now vote on acceptance of the minutes of the AGM? This will be done by poll.
Can you help me? In the room, can you please hold up your cards? We have to count you. We can only count the cards, if you remember.
Bit more challenging doing this as both a hybrid event.
Yes,
so I might revise that 1 hour time limit for the AGM.
Okay, and anyone against?
No, anybody want to abstain?
Anyone wish to abstain?
No, great. That's
Brilliant.
done then. Marvellous. Right. So, oh, sorry. The result. Yeah. So the backroom people are now adding up the scores. Feel like a game show. Adding up the votes from in the hall and those that are online. Right. Yeah. So 161 are in favour of accepting the minutes of last year, and 10 are abstaining. I presume that's because they weren't at the meeting. Let's like to think so anyway. Okay, so the annual report. I'd like to present some of the highlights from the annual report. You've all had an opportunity to download the annual report from the website and from your booking communications. But our annual report is presented in 3 sections. There are the 3 pillars of our 5-year strategic plan, which was published in 2021, and which we featured at our AGM last year. These pillars are inspire, seeing and experiencing photography; create, making and engaging with photography; and connect, sharing the experience of photography with others. Our vision and mission remain unchanged from where they were last year. Underpinning each of our strategic programmes are 5 aims. The 5th aim, raising the profile of the society, is essentially a function of the programmes and development arms of the senior leadership team. But of course, this is an activity in which each of us, as members of the society, can play our part, whether it's using our post-nominals, RPS, ARPS, etc., indicating the distinctions we hold, or through our websites and our own social media streams, or through our interaction and engagement with other photographers. There are many ways in which each of us contributes to this aim. And I hope over the coming months and years, more opportunities for raising the profile of the society will be possible as we continue to build longer-term relationships with other organisations and institutes. So some of those highlights then. Exhibitions, the International Photography Exhibition, edition 162 for 2021. IPE is the longest running photographic exhibition in the world. We have 2021, we had 1,370 entrants from 62 countries, and 43 photographers were exhibited in the final exhibition. It was Bristol limited because of national lockdown, but it did go on tour to Beverley, Mold and Taunton. And in total, over 10,000 visitors saw IPE. It started off here, but then went on tour. And we've got a long-term relationship starting with the Museum of Gloucester, which is still in this neck of the woods. So we'd like to sort of expand that a little bit more. One of the projects, another exhibition, Generations, Portraits of Holocaust Survivors, was undertaken in association with Jewish News, the Imperial War Museum, the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, Dangor Education, and we've recently taken on a new partner to this project, the Fed in Manchester, where the exhibition will open at IWM North, Imperial War Museum North, on the Holocaust Memorial Day next year, 27th of January. We have 50 contemporary portraits produced by 14 leading photographers, and has been an incredible success. The Duchess of Cambridge, as she was then, our patron, took 2 of the portraits that are in the exhibition. The RPS Awards, which unusually for photography awards, celebrate personal contribution to photography rather than the merits or otherwise of a photograph or a body of work. It's an award to the individual. We did it by video due to the pandemic, the awards ceremony, and we awarded all the usual medals and honorary fellowships. And we've also recently, as recently as yesterday, ratified new regulations for the RPS Awards, so that they're now more in tune with the ambitions of the RPS. That was at the Board of Trustees meeting held yesterday. The journal has gone from strength to strength. It's an award-winning publication, and it has a unique editorial voice that differentiates itself from many of the other photographic publications that are available in wider areas. We redesigned the journal in August 2020, and it's still edited by Kathleen Morgan, who I'd like to use this opportunity to pay thanks to, because she is an absolutely amazing editor, and we all benefit from her editorial guidance. You'll note also that we now include reports of Board of Trustee meetings in the journal, and this was a direct result of a request at the AGM last year to have more transparency on what we do as trustees and how we work towards the best interests of the society. So I hope you enjoy reading them. The new RPS collection is in its emergence stage, and this will be relevant to our history and to preserve the work of members. So somewhat different from the old RPS collection, which is now in the V&A. It's going to be historic and contemporary, and all genres will be represented. It will become an important educational resource, and importantly, will be available through RPS online. Moving to education, we offer a diverse offering of in-person, online and facilitated programs. Last year, we offered 231 photography workshops with 2,438 participants, and that was mostly online. 6,618 photographers were supported in their photographic journey through our education offering. Distinctions and qualifications are obviously the best asset that we have after members, and the distinctions and qualifications is why a lot of people choose to join the RPS. So it's interesting for trustees and for other members to look at the stats around distinctions. In 2021, we offered 613 one-to-one assessment, one-to-one interviews with prospective distinctions candidates, and that was up from 376 the previous year. There were 741 assessments, slightly up from the previous year, but interestingly, the success rate, probably as a consequence of the quality of the one-to-one interviews, went up from 51 to 63. And we'd really like that to get up higher to sort of 65 to 70%, and that's an ambition. LRPS, ARPS and FRPS all up from the previous year. FRPS, for example, 67, up from 24 the previous year, and that's a 44% pass rate. And the numbers in grey at the side, 663, that's how many fellows there are in the world at the moment. So you can see 3,091 LRPS, 2,239 ARPS, and 663 FRPS. So it is very much a pyramid. The pass rate I've mentioned. On FRPS, we confer 12 each year as part of the awards. And so currently there are 204 holding on FRPS. The two qualifications that we offer, the Creative Industries qualification and the Imaging Science qualification, we want to really focus on them to make them much more popular and much more mainstream. Last year, we had 3 new Imaging Science qualified individuals, bringing the total to 107, which is a small number, but not as small as the Creative Industries. We didn't have any new applicants last year, no successful applicants, and there are only 18, which means that has got to be a focus for getting that qualification, much more exposure. The RPS community, we talk a lot about the RPS community and who we are and where we are in the world. And last year there was a criticism, a very valid criticism, that we didn't present information about the RPS membership. So I want to put that right this year. And it also flags up something that is of concern. So looking at the 2021 figures, the third column, In the UK, we have 9,317 members, internationally 1,338, giving us a total membership then of 10,655. This year, the estimate is 10,249, so it's a reduction in membership. But you only have to look at the bottom line and you can see that the net slide is one of a declining membership, which is something that we need to address. It's not going down steeply, but it is going down significantly. In terms of the regions, we are spread around the UK. As you saw from the previous slide, most of our members are in the UK. And this is how the membership happens regionally. And you can also see here that some regions are bigger than others. When somebody joins the RPS, they're automatically assigned a region, whereas the groups, they can elect to pay a small fee and join a group. You can see here that the largest groups that we have are digital imaging, which is not genre specific, and visual art, which is what the pictorial group was. If you're here in the building, you should take the opportunity to have a look at the exhibition in our gallery at the moment about neo-pictorialism. So the groups and the regions are incredible assets of the organisation. They're great social forums for people to meet as photographers, and we need to do everything we can to make them much more beneficial to the membership. So let's look at the international membership then. We are a UK organisation, but we do have an international membership. Almost 40% of our international membership comes from China, Hong Kong, USA and Canada. And they are areas which we can look at for growth of the society. There are other areas that have huge potential growth, which we're not really tapping into yet. India, for example, with 4.1% of our international members, 0.5% of all our membership. That is a huge market to look at, and that's something that we should be doing. So that's just a highlight of some of the things from the annual report. The most gripping part of the annual report, as ever for Tony, our treasurer, are the finances. So I'm going to hand over to Tony at this point and leave him to tell us the news. Thanks very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tony Cairns, as you know, and I'm the Society's treasurer. I joined as a trustee in April this year after the year end of the accounts that have been presented today. So I wasn't a trustee for the year in question, but I agreed to sign the accounts and present them to you. I don't normally read out presentations, but in an AGM, I think a written transcript is important for the record. So I'd like to cover off in a few slides the context of the accounts, that is really the significance of the accounts to today's economic climate, rather than the figures in detail. Members, I think, have been given an opportunity to read the accounts and to submit questions beforehand. So this is the first slide. This chart sets out the total income compared to the previous 4 years. You'll see that total income has increased year on year by 14%, or 8% if you discount 2020. Because 2020 was quite an unusual year due to COVID. Of course, 2021 also, we had some COVID difficulties. So actually trying to assess a trend at the minute is actually quite difficult. The key line in this chart, as Simon has already said, is the subscriptions line. There's been a slight increase in 2021, but not much to write home about. And as you know, and as Simon has said, membership has been in decline for several years. And it's the thing I want to return to a little later on in this little talk. Other points to note from this chart: other income increased largely due to the fact that the opening up of events and workshops following the lifting of COVID restrictions. And there was a reduction in investment income. The Society's fund manager was changed so that the new fund managers, Aberdeen, were appointed in the year. So if I can have the next slide, please, Sam. This slide shows a 5-year record of a measure called EBITDA. I won't describe what the acronym EBITDA stands for, but what it is a very useful measure, because what it throws the spotlight on is operating activities. So it excludes exogenous cash flows, like investment income. It excludes non-cash items, like depreciation. And it also excludes one-off transactions of a one-off nature, like property write-downs. So it's a really good, one good indicator of the financial health of an organization. Pleasingly, 2021 shows an improvement over the last 4 years. But the big problem, though, is it's negative. So that means that the society is still consuming cash from operations rather than breaking even or even generating a surplus from operations. Next slide, please. Apart from the improved trend in EBITDA, I think 2 other things are worth mentioning. Firstly, in the statement of financial activities, there's a line called impairment of fixed assets with a charge of £414,000 or thereabouts. Technical accounting standards require that the value of fixed assets be adjusted to the value given by an independent valuation report. So the adjustment doesn't affect cash. I think the point to make is that without this technical adjustment, the society would have actually posted a net surplus for the year of about £111,000 rather than the net deficit of £302,000. What this tells me is that the society is well capable of generating a surplus. The second point to note is to do with the reserves policy. The trustees decided that it would be prudent to maintain the level of reserves within the target range previously set of £2 to £3 million. This will help the society to withstand shocks that might arise due to movements in the market, adverse economic conditions, or unforeseen operational issues. Next slide, please. So let me speak to those potential shocks in a little bit more detail. In terms of the balance sheet, the most valuable assets are the listed investments and RPS House. The value of listed investments at 31st of December 2021 was £3 million. Remember, investments underpin the society's free reserves. During the current financial year, in common with most other investment holdings, the investment portfolio declined in value following the falls in the stock markets and in the bond markets. At one point, the value of investments had reduced by 20%, although it has recovered a little since then. However, the volatility in the markets are still raging. Even yesterday, following the Chancellor's announcements, there was a massive fall in bond markets and share markets. So it's been sensible for the trustees to maintain a prudent reserves policy. RPS House is on a 250-year-long lease, and including permanent plant and machinery, is valued at £2.35 million. To some extent, it acts as a hedge against the volatility of the markets, although I wouldn't want to push this argument too far. The financial issue, however, remains its opportunity cost. It's a large part of the society's asset base and ties up a lot of capital. So the society needs to increase the value delivered from RPS House. In terms of cash flows, the largest source of shock is likely to be high inflation and recession, conditions that were not visible on the horizon when the current year's budgets were put together last December. But I can't really stress enough how difficult this will be for charities in general and the society in particular. The cost of living crisis could affect membership retention and certainly will increase operating costs. Next slide, please, Simon. High inflation is likely to continue for quite some time. Yesterday, we saw sterling come under an amazing amount of pressure. And the result is that the UK will continue to import inflation. Furthermore, if the arts sector experiences significant funding cuts, which almost seems inevitable to me, then the society will see a source of potential funding cut away. Such conditions present real challenges for the charity sector, which depends on donations and fundraising. And the charity sector is particularly exposed to cost inflation. The pandemic, followed by the high inflation we're now suffering, is a real double whammy for the sector. So the financial strategy of the society must be defensive and centered on liquidity and cost control. And in particular, the society needs to consolidate on core strategic objectives. That means a real focus on member retention initially and then growth. Obviously, member retention depends to some extent on service levels. Service levels are vital. And also, it's very dependent on a radically better support for volunteers. Volunteer engagement is absolutely crucial at the moment. Secondly, good working capital disciplines need to be maintained. And finally, robust cost controls will need to be applied. I know that trustees and the senior leadership team are on with course correcting in the face of such challenges. So in summary, the accounts to the 31st of December 2021 show an improvement in financial performance on recent previous years. However, given the current economic climate and probable deterioration, the Board of Trustees has decided to maintain a prudent reserves policy. The Society's main financial objective is to be self-funding from operations. Achieving this in current conditions is a very significant challenge, but it's one that must absolutely be met. So finally, I'm really sorry to be so gloomy, but I think my assessment is realistic. And thank you very much for listening.
Right, some sobering thoughts there from our treasurer. I don't think I've ever known a treasurer say anything other than give sobering thoughts, but today was no exception. Okay, I presented some highlights of the annual report. They were only highlights, and Tony has given us an excellent summary of where we are financially, so thank you very much for that. We invited questions to be posted ahead of today for practical reasons, as well as professional reasons, to allow us to construct an answer that was as full and informative as possible. We received 4 questions. The first question was later retracted, but I felt that it was a very relevant topic, and Evan was going to answer to this question. Unfortunately, Evan has had to go home, so I'm going to provide an answer for you. The question, which as it was withdrawn by the questioner, I've anonymised and also paraphrased, because it's quite a long question. The question read, a lot of members and volunteers have been in touch with us voicing concerns about the RPS's new CRM system and what is being done to address the problems that have arisen with it. Rather than read out any specific question, I'll ask Evan Dawson to provide an update on the project. As I've said, I'm going to provide that update for you. In general, the project, so this is Evan's response, sorry, that he's written for me. In general, the project has not gone to plan. This has caused frustration for members and volunteers, placed extra pressure on staff, impacted our income and reputation. And I'll tell you about what happened, what we have done to address the problems, and what are our next steps. A little bit of background first. The CRM system is the application that allows us to hold data and build relationships with and provide bespoke services to all our members. Our previous system had reached the end of its life, so it needed to be replaced. With help from consultants in August 2020, we put out a tender to select the most appropriate development partner. In July 2021, the Board of Trustees supported the SLT's, the senior leadership team's recommendation for Empresa to carry out this work based on a very impressive proposal, due diligence and external advice. The work started immediately with a go live originally planned for March 2022. Evan then goes on to describe events of the summer 2022. The new system was already 3 months late when our old system failed. This meant that we suddenly couldn't take payments online for new memberships or help members with renewals or event bookings. We put a phone line system in place with 2 excellent temporary workers, which worked well, but there was pressure on us to move to the new system as soon as possible. The experts, our consultants, were telling us that testing had gone well and encouraged us to go live. So that's what we did. That happened in July. It immediately became clear that things had been working well in the test environment, but they weren't working consistently. For some people, it was fine, but for others who couldn't log on, join, renew, or book for events, it was difficult. It was also difficult for our loyal volunteers and hardworking staff, many of whom set up alternative systems to ensure members could still attend events. By late August, the systems were still sporadic at best. We were placing pressure on the developers and project managers, and eventually felt we needed to declare it a crisis and form a task force to address it, including an expert external advisor who was given his time for free, a trustee, Sarah Dow, who's in the audience today, and a volunteer representative, Mark Phillips, from the documentary group. Next steps. I want to apologise to everyone that's been affected by this, including members, staff and volunteers. I know it's been very frustrating. We now have a clear roadmap to prioritise the most urgent fixes, many of which have already been implemented. The most essential features of the system are membership login, payments for new memberships, renewals and groups, and information to volunteers. The new events booking system has a lot of potential, but the user journey for booking and setting up events is currently too complicated. Evan goes on to say, it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is that when it's working properly, the system itself is impressive and offers an enhanced experience for members. George, one of our members of staff, who's in the audience as well, is going to discuss this with everyone this afternoon, giving us a walkthrough of some of the new features. I hope this session will help address any further questions you have. Evan's asking that if you want to write to him about the CRM system and any issues that you have with it, his email address is evan@rps.org. So that concludes Evan's answer to that question. There are 2 more questions. The first 2, Tony is answering, and then Michael's answering the last. So question 2 is from Mark Reeves, FRPS. I note from the annual report that during 2021, income from exhibitions was 3,315, whilst expenditure was 314,433. Please confirm. 1, whether the expenditure represents the full costs, including an apportionment of buildings costs and the costs of the exhibitions, staff, etc. 2, if not already included, what was the estimated full cost of running exhibitions? 3, in the light of the very significant outlay, how the trustees evaluate the costs and benefits of the exhibitions programme? And 4, is this level of net spend planned to continue? Tony, would you like to take question 2 first?
Well, thanks for the question, Mark. The first part is whether or not the expenditure represents the full costs of exhibitions, including staff and overheads, and the answer is yes. The second part of the question is, if not already included, what's the estimated full cost? What it is the full cost? The third part of the question is, in the light of the very significant outlay, how do trustees evaluate costs and benefits? Well, it's worth saying at the outset, I think, that the trustees have a responsibility for ensuring that the Society's charitable objectives continue to be met. And the charitable objectives are to educate members of the public through various means, promoting the art and science of photography, by holding exhibitions is one of the Society's stated means, as set out at the Charity Commission. I mean, it's pleasing to note also that the gap between expenditure and income fell by 20% last year in the year under review. But I think a lot more needs to be done. Firstly, I think the costs need to increase. Firstly, given the costs, we need to increase exhibition attendance levels. I don't think they're high enough. And secondly, there's much more we can do to use the space to exhibit work of members. And that's something that is actually being done now. But one of the complications is that we must do this in a way that doesn't put our charitable status or VAT status or gift aid status at risk. And related to that, the final part of the question is this level of net spend planned to continue? Well, when comparing income to expenditure, it's worth noting that included in the expenditure was £122,000 of head office overheads, and that £30,000 of exhibition-related income was accounted for in donations. So that the difference between expenditure and income is actually a little less than the figures that have been presented in the accounts, because some related aspects have been accounted for in a separate way. But nevertheless, I think the question is a good one. And as you would expect, going into a period of high inflation and recession, this is one of the areas under current scrutiny.
Thank you. Don't go away. Question 3 is also from Mark Reeves. We could set up a chat with it, I think, on this. You're going to answer this one as well, I hope. Mark's question is shorter than the previous one. I know that total income from events and workshops during 2021 was 266,761, whilst expenditure was 350,120, leaving a loss of over 83,000. Given that groups and regions largely run events that generally at least break even, could you please explain, 1, why overall this activity generates a significant loss, 2, whether this loss is planned to continue, and 3, if so, why is this considered to be desirable?
Well, thank you again, Mark. I think you just lived down the road from me, actually. So we can meet for coffee and talk about this. So why is the overall level of activity, why does it generate a significant loss? Well, firstly, I think it's right to say that the groups at least break even, and in fact, they do better than that most of the time. They are actually quite profitable. So I think it's worth acknowledging that. The straight answer to your question is that, of course, we've got insufficient income to cover the overheads. Group activity is through unpaid volunteers. RPS house activity incurs people costs as well as overheads. So groups are not charged for any central costs that are incurred for their benefit. However, even if you strip out people costs and overheads, RPS activity still makes a loss. It's worth mentioning, of course, that the charity is not a for-profit organisation, but we shouldn't be making losses either. It's not wrong for a society to make a loss on discrete activities, as long as in the round, the society makes an overall surplus. But I think the question is very valid. We don't plan for that loss to continue at the same level. And final part of the question, do we consider it to be desirable? No, it's not desirable. It needs to be improved.
Thanks very much. You sit down now. Next question is not for you. The final question that we have on the annual report and accounts is from Richard Ellis. And Michael Pritchard's going to answer this question. The question is, on average per day, the exhibitions programme costs £852, attracts fewer than 20 visitors, and thus incurs a subsidy of around £49 per visitor. In the light of the poor financial performance of this programme, 1, what plans do the trustees or senior leadership team have to make the programme more attractive to a larger number of volunteers? 2, why do the trustees and senior leadership team feel it is desirable to allow the majority of the programmes to focus on social documentary and contemporary photography, rather than a more broad range of photographic subjects, as per the strategic plan and the ambition of photography for everyone. 3, and finally, the volunteers have organised very successful exhibitions in terms of footfall, documentary group, international exposure, London region, and accessibility, landscape group. Given this, why are the groups and regions excluded from using the main gallery in RPS House to exhibit their work? Michael. Dr. Michael Pritchard is Director of Programmes for the RPS.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Again, like Tony, I've written out a response to Richard, and thank you, Richard, for your question. And this will be appended to the minutes in the same way. So firstly, I'd like to thank Richard for his question and the opportunity to contextualise some of the thinking behind the RPS House exhibitions programme. I'm going to start, though, by providing some initial context and then pick up on Richard's specific questions. It's important to start by saying that decisions about the exhibitions programme and content are made by the staff team. The different boards of trustees that we've had since 2018 have set the strategic direction for the society, and this has changed with different boards coming in, and is now, as you've already heard, a much greater focus on the RPS's membership, and this will inevitably feed into the detail of the programme. The programme to date has been widely praised by visitors, but one of the difficulties in reviewing the raw numbers, as Richard has done from the 2021 annual report, is that as a new venue, we only opened to the public in February 2019. We've not had long-term numbers to use as comparators and to see trends. For most of 2020 and almost half of 21, we were unable to open to the public due to the pandemic. However, the RPS was able to make use of the government's job retention scheme, and we had no direct expenditure on the gallery during this period. Since 2019, we've tried several models of ticketing with the trustees' support and also changed the opening hours. So in 2019, for example, we changed charged an admission fee, which brought in a limited income when we opened Thursdays to Sundays. We then worked with the Martin Parr Foundation to better synchronise the opening hours between the two organisations, and as a result, we increased to 5 days per week to support, in part, the ability to make additional sales through coffee and the bookshop. And at the board's request, admission was made free to improve accessibility. So just on a historical basis, in 2019, for the 44 weeks of 2019, when the gallery was open, it received 6,533 visitors. In 2021, for approximately 30 weeks of opening, it received 2,932. And so far in 2022, up to the end of the IPE 163 in mid-August, we received 3,394 visitors in approximately 29 weeks. It's also worth reminding ourselves that the gallery is a key part of the RPS's public presence in Bristol, and it acts as a driver to bring people to RPS events, workshops, and to membership. Those visitors also buy from the RPS bookshop, and they also buy quite a lot of the coffee from us in the coffee shop. Gallery exhibitions are also an important means of delivering on the RPS's public benefit, as Tony's indicated, which it's required to do as a charity, as well as delivering the RPS's own strategic objectives of inclusion, profile raising, and member engagement. Universities, colleges, and school groups from everywhere from Falmouth right in the southwest up to Birmingham and more locally regularly visit and engage with the exhibitions, and that's a really important part of our wider educational remit. The exhibitions are also catalysts for artist talks, workshops, and public activities. Furthermore, the IPE and the other exhibitions are toured across the UK and bring in an income from those venues, which did suffer during the pandemic, although, as you saw from Simon's summary, we did get to Mould, Beverley, and to Taunton. Similarly, the gallery is also hired commercially, and some of you may have seen Food Photographer of the Year last year. They're coming back again this year and also into next year as well, which brings a direct income into the gallery. But we also aim to extend these commercial hires. The addition of the outdoor exhibition space, which those in the room will have seen outside with some work from the University of the West of England, which opened in June this year, has also allowed us to show shorter, less costly exhibitions to deliver on some of those wider strategic objectives. So that's probably enough context. In answers to Richard's specific questions, firstly, the programme. Programme is designed to meet the RPS's strategic objectives, and we have shown a range of exhibitions from the RPS's own ever-popular international photography exhibition to those showcasing inspiring photography from a range of diverse photographers and artists. We keep the programme under review, and we are looking to grow audiences by showing exhibitions that are popular, but also to inspire and challenge our visitors as set out in the strategic plan. Secondly, content. I would question the premise that the content focuses on social documentary work. With 4 exhibitions in the normal year, including the IPE and food. Since 2019, the exhibitions have ranged from historical photography, environmental themes, augmented reality installations, fine art, social documentary, of course, portraiture, food, but within which that exhibition, there are themes that range from fine art and advertising to documentary. We've also shown exhibitions, and currently you can see a work that focuses very much on processes and well-being, and 2 editions of the IPE, which again covers all genres from landscape and the natural world to contemporary work, fine art, social documentary themes. Many of these have included members' work, and the IPE 164, which we selected just last week, includes the work of 12 members out of 46 selected photographers, so the membership should be proud of its inclusion in the IPE. And thirdly, the groups, regions and members. Again, I would question the premise of the question. Groups and regions have not been specifically excluded from the gallery, but the gallery does have this wider public remit for the RPS. Some of the group exhibitions, especially exhibitions like the documentary group's Documentary Photographer of the Year, I could foresee being shown in the gallery. I'm looking forward to seeing the current edition in a couple of weeks' time at Chippenham. That's the plug for Mark. We welcome costed proposals for exhibitions for the gallery and the outdoor exhibition space from the groups, regions, and the members more generally. And as long as these fulfil the RPS's wider objectives, engage a photography audience and have a broad public appeal, then they will get proper consideration. In 2023, we will be hosting an exhibition outdoors and on the video wall from the RPS's Women in Photography group. And in the same year, the RPS's travel group will be holding an exhibition of travel photography here in Bristol. So there is work happening. What I can also announce for the first time, although Tony slightly stole my thunder if you picked up on it, is that in November, we will be launching a call for a summer exhibition that will showcase photography from the RPS's membership. We hope that the groups, regions and overseas chapters, as well as individual members, will encourage and submit work for that call, and look forward to seeing members' work in the gallery. So please look out for the details of that call in the next issue of the journal that's due out at the end of October. So finally, I would just end by saying that the groups and regions continue to produce excellent online and gallery exhibitions which reach beyond Bristol and show across the UK and overseas. And they support the RPS House activities extremely well. The AV Festival, for example, the documentary group, the creative group, and those from the Western regions I know of from personal experience. They're all distinctive and they help further the RPS's objectives alongside the exhibitions in the RPS gallery. So thank you again, Richard, for your question and allowing me to give you a slightly more of an overview and contextualised view of the RPS exhibitions programme.
Thank you, Mark. I'm very pleased to announce that Dr. Michael Pritchard is winner of the RPS Award for the longest answer to the shortest question. Thank you. I think we are going to go slightly over the 1 hour mark. Anyway, thank you for your questions, and thank you for those who provided the responses. And I'd now like to formally accept the reports on behalf of the Society, so that we could really have a proposer for the to accept the reports. Edgar. Oops, and somebody to second, please. Matthew Lodge.
Thanks.
Thank you. And now we go for a poll.
Poll 2. And the question is, do we accept?
It's approval of the reports, yeah.
Yeah. Acceptance of the annual report. Anyone against? And any abstentions?
I got Carol. How many have we got then?
From here.
Don't get comfortable. We've got another poll immediately after this. So I'll sort of brief that in now. At this point in the meeting, we have to have one final vote, and that's to take to appoint more accountants as auditors. Poll 3 coming up.
Poll 3.
Yeah, please. So I'll just announce the results of this. To accept the annual report and accounts, there's a total of 173 in favour, 1 against, 8 abstentions.
Considering we've got more than that 200 or 30 people online, that doesn't quite make sense.
Well, not if everybody doesn't vote and may
No.
not do anything.
No.
And they've gone to sleep. No criticism to Michael, of course. And they may have gone to sleep long before that. So now we need to have a poll about the appointment of auditors, and this is to appoint more accountants as auditors. So could we have that poll, please?
We need a proposal second.
Proposer, sorry. Same.
Sarah.
Sarah Dow's proposed, seconded. Nikki. Oh no, you're removing your glasses. Sorry. Don't go to an auction, will you? Edgar. Yeah, thanks. Brilliant.
And now we need to vote.
Right. If we can vote in house again, please.
Any for? Against? And any abstentions? Thank you, folks.
This is the downside of doing a hybrid event. You've got to corral it all together. Thanks. Okay. So poll 3 to appoint more as auditors. Total in favour 150, 1 against, 23 abstentions. So that's carried as well. Right. We're going to go through at pace now. Thank you for your involvement in polls. We now come to the formal notice of appointments to the board as required under bylaw 26.3D. You'll be aware that the board is composed of 6 elected trustees plus an elected president and 4 appointed trustees plus an appointed honorary treasurer. Following an election in 2021, the AGM last year, we elected 6 trustees who will serve until the close of the AGM in 2024. Subsequent to that election, the board undertook a skills gap analysis and worked with our nominations committee to appoint 4 trustees and an honorary treasurer. Following their, we appointed 3, an honorary treasurer. Following their appointment, the new board chose Matthew Lodge, who's in the audience here, to take the office of deputy chair. Now, I regret to announce that Tony, who's done a sterling job of delivering his sombre news, is retiring as treasurer. And I am extremely grateful for him for taking that role on at very short notice and for a short period of time while we had nobody in that office. So on behalf of the board and the entire membership of the society, I'd like to thank Tony for his work and wish him well with his other pursuits. So thank you very much, Tony. I think you're going to sterling job, sombre or otherwise. So the best of luck. Right, at a board meeting held yesterday and following recommendations from our nominations committee, the board has made 2 further appointments. Derek Trendle has been appointed as honorary treasurer. Many members will remember Derek from his time as honorary treasurer between 2017 and 2019, a time when the society moved from Bath to Bristol. I worked with Derek when I became a director of 100 Heroines as we migrated that project out of the RPS and into a new charitable entity. I very much look forward to working again with Derek. The board also appointed Sophie Collins as an appointed trustee. Sophie is Chief Marketing Officer at MPB. We've probably all bought equipment from there or sold it to them. And she brings a wide range of marketing experience to the board. Derek and Sophie will serve for 3 years, effective from the close of this AGM. So a very warm welcome to both of them. For the first time in quite a while, we now have a full board of 12 trustees, bringing an incredibly diverse range of professional experience and skills to the task of providing effective governance to the society. And I'm pleased to say that most of the trustees actually are in the room or online today. We must now turn our attention to the motion. There was only one motion put to the meeting, and that is to re-elect me as President and Chair of Trustees to serve until the close of the AGM in 2025. This motion was proposed at a meeting of the Board of Trustees held 23rd of May and had the unanimous support of the board. The motion, already having the support of the 10 trustees, subsequently gained the support of 55 members and, as required under bylaw 26.5, was duly lodged at the registered office of the Society on Friday, the 17th of June 2022. With the notice of the annual general meeting published in the RPS Journal, volume 162, members were asked to vote on the motion. The result of the vote on the motion is 249 in favour, 15 against, with 3 abstentions. Therefore, the motion is carried with the support of 93.3% of the total votes cast. As you can imagine, I'm incredibly humbled and, of course, delighted that so many of those members voting on the motion have chosen to support my re-election as president. So thank you very much for that. I'll continue to do the best I can to ensure an effective and sustainable future for the Society. I'm sorry that 15 members felt they couldn't support the motion. So if they wish, I invite them to write to me at president@rps.org so that we can discuss any concerns they may have and together trying to find a way to address them. Thank you again to everyone who supported, voted in support of the motion. There are also some other thanks to give. We're now approaching the end of this meeting, and I'd like to thank the production team. I won't name them individually, but I will pick out Janet Haynes. So if Janet would stand, she controlled this AGM incredibly well. So many rehearsals, such attention to detail. So thank you very much. Janet and the team. She's proved to be, as ever, a demanding taskmaster. But I hope we're all, well, we are very, very appreciative of her sterling job, and I think we've booked her for next year and the year after. Sorry, you didn't know that, did you know?
No.
So we're really fortunate to have in the Society such dedicated and skillful volunteers in all aspects of what we do, all of whom are prepared to devote so much time to the Society. So I'd also like to thank Susan Hayes for her help in the work that I've had to do as well towards this AGM. So thank you, Susan, and thank you all. We must also give a very special thanks to our wonderful team of presenters. They represent so much of what is great about our Society and what we offer to members in the wider photographic world. So thank you to all the presenters for this afternoon. That's it. That's the last applause you need. So to finish then, I'd like us to consider the journeys we take as photographers and as a Society, and how in making those journeys, we must revise our strategic priorities as we navigate the challenging times ahead. T.S. Eliot said, "The journey, not the arrival, matters." Last year, the Society published its strategic plan, Photography for Everyone, comprising some 21 individual programmes that we intend to deliver over the next 5 years. This plan was written before the end of the Brexit transition period and realisation of the enormous national impact of our exit from Europe, before the long-term economic effects of the pandemic became properly understood, before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and before these and other events set much of the world on a course for staggering levels of inflation and the likelihood of global recession. This challenging climate could not have come at a worse time for our Society. A declining membership, reduced returns on an already compromised investment portfolio, increasing operational costs, and greater competition from other ways through which we can support our personal photographic journeys. In this current climate, our strategy may now appear overambitious. However, I make no apology for this. I'd rather work with the board and the executive to create a strategy that is ambitious and needs to be tuned than one that is underwhelming and not nearly ambitious enough. On any journey, travellers must remain vigilant and respond speedily and efficiently to changing environments. And so it is with the delivery of our strategic plan. As the global economy shifts and changes around us, and a multitude of obstacles appear in our path, both internal and external to the Society, we must retune the direction of our journey to successfully navigate our way. The executive, together with our members and representatives committee, has assessed and grouped our 21 strategic programmes in terms of contribution that each can make to building membership, serving the membership, and sustaining that membership over the longer term. In no particular order, 7 areas of strategic focus have been identified as major contributors to these aims. These are distinctions and qualifications, education, our community of groups, regions and international membership, exhibitions, the RPS journal, mentorship, and a significant expansion of our RPS online activities that so proved their worth as we develop new ways of engaging with members during the pandemic. As we steer our way through the difficulties of the current climate, I feel these are the programmes that should be given the greatest operational effort. Our priority must be building, serving and sustaining the membership. You'll note, I'm sure, that the photographer's journey does not appear in this refocused list of programmes. It is, however, arguably the most important of our 21 programmes, and that's why it's chosen as the theme of the wraparound event of this year's AGM. The photographer's journey is the overarching ideal under which all our programmes sit as we work to deliver photography for everyone. So what is the photographer's journey? Over recent months, this has been the subject of some considerable discussion, and incidentally, a great deal of debate about where we should place the apostrophe. But I'll come back to that in a moment. Never short of excitement, eh? Punctuation. Firstly, I should clear up what has become a persistent confusion. The definition of the photographer's journey has never been properly articulated, and this has caused it to become conflated with the new customer relationship management system, such that the CRM system is by some mistakenly referred to as the photographer's journey. The CRM system is a vitally important software investment. It is not a strategic program. It is not some magic system that will transform our society overnight, nor will it immunize us from the enormous challenges that we face in these unprecedented times. The CRM system is not the photographer's journey. It is simply a tool that relies on the work of our staff and volunteers for it to be effectively and efficiently used. Just as buying, say, a new photocopier won't make the society any more or less efficient than it is already. It just allows us to do things differently, things that we wouldn't normally do, and it makes life easier, or rather, it should make life easier. You will all have become aware over recent weeks and months that the procurement and implementation of the CRM system has not been without its problems. Yes, this is an understatement, but with the commitment of the staff, volunteers and trustees, and the patience and resilience of members, we will get it over the line. The CRM system will allow us to have a more meaningful interaction with members. It will help us build relationships with and between members. It will streamline our processes so that our society becomes more attractive and welcoming to new members. It will provide each of us with personalised interaction with our society, and it will allow everyone, members and non-members, to have greater engagement with our many events and opportunities. At the same time, however, we must also address the organisational and financial problems that limit our potential for growth and the expansion and quality of our services to members. It's been a great honour for almost 2 years to be president of this society, which I joined as a schoolboy, and I look forward to the next 3. It's also an enormous privilege to be chair of a board of trustees in which each trustee brings a unique set of experiences and skills, all of which are vital to ensuring the future success of this society. With this board, the Royal Photographic Society is in very capable hands, but please be under no illusion that the decisions it must take over the coming months will not be painful. To ensure our society can weather the storm, better fulfil its charitable objects, while simultaneously delivering the service and opportunities that members expect, the board will not shy away from taking these decisions. So let me return to the photographer's journey. If the photographer's journey is not the CRM system, what is it? It's an integrated offering of opportunities, connections, and influences that will take all of us, both as individual photographers and as a social collective of photographers, on a creative, exciting, and fulfilling journey. After all, this is what we seek from our membership of the society, and to consider this journey requires me to return to the matter of that much discussed apostrophe. The photographer's journey is one we take together, as a society of friends supporting each other on our individual journeys. So when thinking about the purpose and direction of our society, I automatically, without thinking, place the apostrophe after the S, the plural possessive, indicating that this is our collective journey as members of an inclusive society. Of course, there are two sides to any debate, and I had to accept the other view, that the journey is one we take as unique and individual photographers. Uncharacteristically, I accepted defeat and reluctantly agreed to the placement of the apostrophe before the S, the singular possessive, indicating the journey is taken by an individual photographer. Just as light itself can be considered a wave and a particle, I suppose this duality of a journey taken by many photographers, whilst also being a journey taken by individual photographers, has some resonance with the duality of our society. Simultaneously, we're a membership organisation and a public benefit arts organisation, a charity. Well, just aside from here, those I had breakfast with this morning, we talked about the duality of light. I told you I'd get it in there somewhere. Perhaps we can agree to disagree on the placement of the apostrophe, but this struggle with correct punctuation led me to another journey, which I want to describe to you. Please bear with me. I promise you, this journey is a photographic journey. There's a strong emphasis on photography, and it begins with an injustice within our society's organisation structure. Sounds exciting, huh? The Republic of Ireland is not a UK region, yet for years it was included on our website under UK regions. 3 years ago, as a new trustee, I wanted to find a way of ensuring our members in the Republic of Ireland felt included in the wider regional network of our society without the indignity of suffering a subversion of their national identity. The easiest solution was for UK regions to become regional hubs and remove any reference to the UK. However, this highlighted another problem. As a UK charter company and a charity, our geographical jurisdiction is the United Kingdom and therefore does not include the Republic of Ireland. So Ireland had to become an RPS international chapter. But as our closest neighbour and sharing the same language, it remains a very blurred line between region and chapter. Nonetheless, we put right and historic wrong. On the subject of putting right and historic wrong, and as a demonstration of the importance of correct punctuation, we can look again to Ireland and to the struggle for Irish independence. Sir Roger Casement was a celebrated Irish nationalist. He was born in 1864 at Sandycove, Dublin, and in 1916 he was hanged, aged 51, at Pentonville Prison, London. His crime was high treason, trying to gain German military assistance for the 1916 Easter Rising. Now, famously, Casement was hanged on a comma that had been mistakenly inserted in the Norman French text of the Treason Act of 1351. Bear with me. Correct punctuation also provides the next link in this journey, as it now takes a distinctly photographic turn. On the 15th of August 1968, the American authors Jack Kerouac and William S. Burroughs had a very physical fight as they argued over the use of the Oxford comma. The rights and wrongs of the Oxford comma is another story for another day, which I'm quite happy to have. But it was thinking about Jack Kerouac that led me to consider the notion of journey and what that can mean for photographers. Kerouac's 1957 novel, On the Road, is a journey narrative that became the defining work of the Beat generation. He typed the novel over 3 weeks onto a continuous roll of paper. It's based on a road trip he took with his friends across the United States during the late 1940s. Now, the reason my thoughts went to Jack Kerouac was not only because of On the Road and the journey narrative, and we're talking about a photographer's journey, but also because he wrote the introduction to Robert Frank's 1958 photo book, The Americans. This is one of the most influential works of post-war photography. It completely changed the course of documentary photography, and it forged the documentary genre that we know today. Now, these photographic connections don't end with Jack Kerouac, nor do they end with Robert Frank, because The Americans was itself inspired by the earlier work of another photographer, Walker Evans, and his American photographs. published as a catalogue to his 1938 exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art, then Cinder's exhibited or been published 20 years before Frank's photo book. Now, the more I thought about who did what and when, the more I realised I was building a picture of a photographic journey taken not by a lone photographer working in isolation, but of a group of photographers, writers and curators, all working at different times and in different places, a continuum of opportunities, connections and influences that together facilitated such an incredibly exciting artistic journey. Indeed, so exciting was this journey that I felt inspired to reread an author I hadn't read since art college some 40 years ago. "I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list," is a quote from Susan Sontag, the American writer, philosopher, political activist, and the author of On Photography, published in 1977. On Photography examines the aesthetic and moral problems raised by the authority of the photograph in our modern times. Sontag was open about her bisexuality. In an interview for The Guardian in 2000, she claimed to have been in love 9 times, 5 times with women and 4 times with men. From 1989 until her death from leukemia in 2004, Sontag was in her most meaningful and probably her most romantic relationship with the portrait photographer Annie Leibovitz, who, as one of our honorary fellows, links us right back to the Royal Photographic Society. But the connections and the journey don't end there. When I thought about Susan Sontag's writing and her relationship with Annie Leibovitz, it reinforced for me the notion that journey narratives are a vehicle for cultural and political commentary. But more importantly, they are a vehicle for the transformation of the individual. Now, isn't that exactly what we want from our membership of the Royal Photographic Society? We want to be transformed into more creative and more successful photographers as we take this photographic journey. It was because of this notion of a vehicle for transformation that I was able to make one final connection in this journey. My train of thought jumped from the Sontag-Leibovitz relationship to a film that quite literally involved a vehicle and which used a female relationship to rewrite the traditional masculine narrative of the road movie. Somebody whispered it then. Thelma and Louise is the 1991 American feminist road movie, written by Callie Curry and directed by Ridley Scott. It sees Thelma Dickinson, played by Gina Davis, and Louise Sawyer, played by Susan Sarandon, subvert the stereotypical masculinity of the road movie in a cinematic celebration of female agency. Now, let me recap where we are, how we arrived here, and the conclusion I draw from this in respect to the photographer's journey, wherever you choose to place the apostrophe. We've taken a journey from an ambition to be a more inclusive society, to the naming of the RPS regions, through Irish nationalism and the execution of Sir Roger Casement, to Jack Kerouac and Robert Frank, and the evolution of the documentary genre, via Walker Evans and New York's Museum of Modern Art, to Susan Sontag and Annie Leibovitz, to the Royal Photographic Society, to Ridley Scott and Thelma and Louise. Now, that's one hell of a journey. So to conclude this address, we need to visit the final scene of Thelma and Louise, where the 2 women are in their car on a cliff edge, surrounded by police, moments away from arrest. When Ridley Scott was in the cutting room, editing this final scene, he was faced with a dilemma. He'd shot the scene with Thelma and Louise holding hands as they drove their car over the edge of the cliff, plummeting onto the rocks below. However, the scripted scene cut to the final shot, showing an undamaged car and the 2 women miraculously surviving their crash and driving off into the distance. This sat uncomfortably with Ridley Scott. A second option that he considered was to have Louise push Thelma out of the car to save her from certain death. Neither of these made it to the final cut. It was the third option that was used for the theatrical release of the film. This sees the pair holding hands as they accelerate over the edge of the cliff. But while the car is still in midair, the scene fades to a white-out screen, leaving the viewer not knowing whether Thelma and Louise lived or died, what actually happened. For Ridley Scott and his audience, whether Thelma and Louise lived or died was not important. To paraphrase where this began, T.S. Eliot, the journey is all that matters. So it is for us as members of the Royal Photographic Society. It is our journey that matters. Of course, our much respected distinctions of licentiateship, associateship and fellowship provide a wonderful opportunity for the exchange of ideas, skills and practices that enriches all of us as they provide validation of our creativity and our technical abilities. But they are simply points of punctuation, commas, if you like, on our journey as photographers. This is why I maintain that the photographer's journey, with the apostrophe very specifically placed after the S, is and has always been the most important benefit of being a member of this unique and inclusive society. We must build our membership, encourage more photographers to join us on our collective journey, whether amateur or professional, experienced or novice, young or old, rich or financially challenged, male, female or non-binary, able or less able, white or of colour. With a larger, more diverse and more inclusive membership, our journey will be far more creative, exciting and fulfilling as we take that journey together rather than alone. Thank you.